Business Council is calling for those involved in the defrauding of the state's COVID-19 relief fund to be jailed. We're joined by Sandile Zungu, who is the Black Business Council president. Later on, we'll be speaking to Bones Modise, who is the ANC Gauteng spokesperson. Before we get to that, Mr. Zungu, good evening, and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, you seem to have been shocked by the fact that the extent of corruption that has been taking place under COVID-19 has been as extensive as it is, especially given the fact that you have been calling for black businesses to be prioritized in getting many of these contracts.
Well, thank you, Kate. Thank you for having me here. As a Black Business Council, we've been at the forefront of greater participation by black businesses in the supply of PPEs, not just nationally, provincially, even in metros as well. And to the extent possible, we have said to our members, comply with every tenet of regulation, letter and spirit. If it means you must be part of portals, supplying tax clearance certificate, bar for black business. And most of black business organizations have complied with our instructions. And we are very disappointed that parallel to that demand from our side for greater diligence on the side of our members, people have done what is now reported to have been done. Basically, lack of transparency, lack of competitive bidding, lack of fairness, and basically awarded contracts. We cannot be very personal and specific because most of those details will be coming out through the SIU process. But on what we know and what we have actually seen in the public, it actually fills a lot of us with a lot of revulsion, I must say.
And Mr. Zungu, as we're having this conversation, we're taking a look at news just in. So this is out of the President's office tonight, confirming that the spokesperson for the President, Muskusela Diko, has asked for a leave of absence from any official roles in government, pending the investigations on the recent allegations involving her and her husband in tender irregularities in Gauteng, and in particular in the Department of Health in Gauteng. The Minister and the Presidency, as well as the President, have accepted this request that she's put in, and they do announce that Mr. Tyrone Siale is going to be acting in that position of the spokesperson for the President while Ms. Diko is on leave. And of course, all of this comes as a result then of the fallout and the reports that we have seen in the last 2 weeks since the Independent broke the story of the conflict of interest that arises. And I think it's an important conversation for us to have, because many a time when we do have these issues raised when it comes to procurement or even allegations of corruption, it seems to involve people who are politically connected. And the question is always around the kind of influence that the positions they have may or may not have played a role in them getting any work with government.
Well, I will processes leading up to them being awarded those contracts. But what we know is that a lot of members of the Black Business Council, a lot of organizations in black business in general, will have been very keen to also be invited to apply, to supply PPEs, but they were not. And so there's a lot of unfairness in that respect. We are told that some of those PPEs were supplied at inflated prices, which itself is very bad. And therefore there is price rigging, if one were to present it that way. So it's very unfortunate. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of people out there are losing confidence in the system, and we cannot afford to have citizens of this country seeing that there's a breach of social contract on the side of government and the politicians.
Are you at all concerned about the fact that some of these companies that are receiving these contracts, I mean, one particular company in Gauteng, when you look at the front page of the Sunday Times yesterday, the cumulative amount of contracts that they've received is close to over 800 million rand, all of it going to one company. Do things like that bother you, or do you simply believe maybe they are really that good at their job?
Well, it's very surprising Some of those facts became available to us only a couple of days ago after we granted the interview. So we, I must say quite categorically that we don't know who the personalities are, and we are therefore not personal. But to the extent that a company is formed recently and has been given that level of confidence by the powers that be to award, to supply PPEs to the extent of 800 billion rands, when there are credible entities out there with a lot of track record, it raises a lot of questions. And also it basically says to black businesses who have wanted to supply here, that to win the confidence and the trust of our government, such that we can also supply. Some of them are in this space of healthcare. Others will have wanted to pivot into the area of healthcare because there's an immediate opportunity, but they've not been even invited to pitch for that. And that's where the unfairness that we are citing as Black Business Council comes in.
Do you think that it's time to start blacklisting not just businesses? Because you may blacklist a business, but we know that people find different ways of re-emerging under shelf companies, under other umbrella businesses. But that it's time to also start blacklisting individuals who have been caught up in government corruption scandals from doing any business with the state going forward, especially in cases where there has been evidence to that effect presented?
That is an instrument that has been available to the state for a very long time. I don't know why they will not have used it. So it's not for us to emphasize when the sets of facts on the table present themselves, such that government has got to do something very urgently. It must be seen to be fighting corruption, but also it must be seen to be doing so urgently. Timing is of the essence.
I want to quickly get your response to the news that Khusela Diko will be stepping aside while these investigations into the contracts in Gauteng then takes place.
Khusela Diko is one of the most skilled spokespersons that we have had in the presidency. The fact that she was the first black woman spokesperson in the presidency since the dawn of democracy filled a lot of us with a lot of pride. It will be very tragic indeed if her tenure comes to an end because of this malfeasance, supposedly. So we are heartened by her deciding to take leave of absence. We hope that it's not an end of her, because she's a wonderful woman.
There have been big concerns, especially when you look at South Africans' perceptions around corruption, right? The coming in of Cyril Ramaphosa as president of the country, many said it was the ushering in of a new dawn, where even issues like corruption would see a major reduction and that there would be a fight against corruption. Do you think that that is taking place in earnest under Cyril Ramaphosa's presidency?
Look, we are very disappointed at the slow pace of change. When the National Director of Prosecutions was appointed, there was a lot of hooray and expectation that things are going to happen. Nothing much has happened. So the whole collective of justice cluster, including an NPA, is weight at which they should be punching. So we are very disappointed at the level of tackling corruption in a decisive way. So the lack of decisive leadership in that value chain leaves much to be desired, and we'll like to urge from the President to the National Director of Public Prosecutions to the head of SIU, to all the agencies of state, including those that have been entrusted with tackling crime around COVID-19, to do their work with agency. South Africa is becoming very impatient. We are beginning to be described as a nation of thieves. And those are harsh words, but that's the reality. So we need decisive leadership on this matter of tackling crime.
All right, let's leave it there for tonight. Sandile Zungu is with the Black Business Council. And just a quick reminder before